months of inventory. What does that mean for real estate, for your clients, for yourself, interpreting the market, for yourself, for a client? Whatever you're looking to do, this is going to be I don't want to say long-winded, but I'm just going to talk and describe how months of inventory works, what it means, the kind of extrapolations we pull from it, and everything that you might be able to use to your own benefit as you enjoy real estate data. So, first off, let's just do a nice general thought. So you have seller, I'm a lefty, so this is going to smear. Seller leverage, we'll put it over here. Leverage. And then you got months of, how's that looking? Yeah, you can read that. Inventory. Now, in general, months of inventory theoretically can go all the way up to infinity. However, we actually, in reality, I think we've seen like 14, 16 months in really, really bad times, because the higher it is, well, there's a balance to it. We'll talk about it. But it really doesn't get that high. So 0 to 9 is a very good, happy swings of the market range. So, obviously 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then for seller leverage, less leverage, aka 0, more leverage. In general, what you see with 0 months of inventory to 9 months of inventory, seller leverage is a nice parabolic swoop. Maybe a little bit more dented, but that works fine. So, in general, 1 month of inventory, sellers have a lot of leverage. They control it. And then we'll kind of go ahead and divide this up for you. Around 3, 4 months. And then around 6, 7 months. You have seller market. Where a seller is the one benefiting the most. The seller has the most power, the most leverage. And then down here, 7 to 9 months of inventory, you got more of a buyer's market. Where over here, the buyer controls the game. The buyer has lots of choices. There's lots of houses on the market. The buyer can go see 12 houses in a day, pick their favorite, and still get a really good deal. Versus over here in the seller's market, there's nothing on the market. This house hit today, and we got to go now, and you're competing with 5 other buyers because everyone needs a house, and that's the only one. So give them your firstborn child and everything they could ever hope for, and then maybe you get it. And then we have nice, in between the 4, 5, 6-ish, 3 to 6 month range, somewhere in there, you have a happy, balanced market. Balanced market where we can negotiate. It's a fair deal. The seller has to give some. The buyer has to give some. Buyers have options. Sellers have some control. But no one here is getting the upper hand on the other person because there's balance to the market. So let's look at some real actual data. Let me flip this over. I don't know why it's skewed that way, but it is regardless. Can I make it bigger right now? No. Anyway, forgive me. Look at this. This is Roanoke's market. Roanoke, Virginia is where I currently work and do business. And so this is the data I have in front of me now. You see here, this is July of 24 to July of 2026. It is currently August of 2026. And we now have July's data showing up. And this is really what brought all this on. Look at that. We went from June of this year to July of this year, a nice sharp little whoop. Roanoke is a very seasonal market. We usually see our swings seasonally, so inventory goes up when we're slower, and inventory goes down when we're faster. Usually that correlates with the winter market and then the spring-summer market. But this is interesting because the spring-summer market might be coming to a close sooner this year versus last year, June to July. We're still going strong. We went from inventory to lower inventory month over month. But, you know, we did see in that year a little bit of a little bump from, what was that, 2.3 to 2.6 from May to June, versus this year was very steady, 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 which was odd in its own right. And then pop. So, what does this mean? Over here, 2 months of inventory to 4.5 months. That's all we're looking at in this short window of time. Let's zoom out. So this is July of 2021 to July of 2026. So a 5-year window looking at us. And you can obviously see a trend emerging here. We've been climbing in our months of inventory. So we've gone from 1.5-ish to all the way up now to 3.5-ish in the span of 5 years. So let me talk about months of inventory and the number that it represents. We now have an idea of what it means and how you can interpret that number, but where is that number coming from? So, number is coming from, let me chat with you. I'm really getting good at this technology stuff, see? Flip. So, months of inventory. Think of it this way. When you have X number of houses on the market and X number of buyers in the market, there is math that can be done to determine what is called the absorption rate. An absorption rate is going to tell you how long it takes for the buyers that are actively in the market to purchase the homes that are actively for sale in the market. How long, aka, for all of this inventory to be absorbed by the demand, supply and demand, economics. So, you have, in a given time frame, a limited supply, whether there's a lot or a little, and then in a given time frame, a limited demand, whether it's a lot or a little. You put those two numbers together, and that's where we're basically getting our days on market. So back over to the data. For example, if you were to say with this current data point, 3.61 months of inventory. Take that number. If we were to not see another house listed on the market, basically that tells you no more houses get listed. Every house that is currently for sale at that moment stays for sale, and every buyer that's currently active in the market stays active. It would take 3.61 months until there are no more houses for sale. That is how long it would take for the options and the houses for sale to be purchased by the buyers that are there purchasing. Now, let's zoom out even more. Data. 10 years. We're looking at July of 2016 to July of 2026. And this is where you can really see how this does change over time, depending on what's going on in the economy, what's going on in the affairs of people's pocketbooks, how much money do people have, how comfortable they are, what are home prices doing, are they high, are they low, do they feel good compared to how much I'm making? You know, there's a lot of things that are going to create the consumer confidence and all the other factors that are going to give a buyer the motivation and the ability to purchase a home. So interest rates tie in very heavily. You can see this decline, very, very sharp down decline from when we were basically recovered from the Great Recession, more or less recovered from the Great Recession. Interest rates were good. People now had jobs, so we got stability and income and homes to buy. So people started buying. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff I can go into with building. We weren't building in this time frame. So you start to see inventory go down because a home goes for sale, it gets purchased. A home goes for sale, it gets purchased. Less homes start entering the market for sale. And then you have COVID hit. And COVID just went nuts. Everyone was buying houses. Interest rates were great. And then you saw historically low inventory, where we had 1 month of inventory 1 month, aka, let me look at you. 1 month of inventory, meaning if no one lists any more houses, everything is sold in 30 days. 30 days. All the houses that are for sale, aka there aren't that many, and all the buyers that are there, aka there's a lot. 30 days, all the homes are gone. There's nothing left for sale. So that is just a crazy low number of homes for sale. AKA, also, back to this, you have no inventory. Sellers have all the power. But over here, you got lots of choices. 8 months worth of inventory. What's this one? 7.88 back in January of 2017. Also, just a little tangent for you. Like I said, Roanoke's market is very seasonal. All these little high points, well, that one's interesting. That's November. But more or less, all these little high points are going to be January, February of the given year. Oh yeah, 2024 was weird. 2024 was really weird. But you're going to see more or less that seasonality, and then the low points are going to be usually the spring, summer months. Commonality being May most commonly. Fun tangent. Regardless, lots of inventory, months of inventory, and then we go down to COVID world. And then we've been trending up ever since. So interest rates have been pushed back up. We've started seeing higher interest rates, and then we started seeing some affordability challenges emerge because of all the home price increases, which is where I'm going to dive next. So, back to this. What you also see in these chunks on a grand scale, you're going to see forced appreciation here. Forced is kind of a strong word. I could just use the word appreciation. Aggressive appreciation would work too. But appreciation is something to focus on. Appreciation. Because over here, like we've said, limited supply, lots of demand. Econ 101, prices go up. So if you were active or at all aware of what was going on in the COVID market of real estate, you would have been aware that multiple offers were driving home prices up quickly. You were seeing overlist offers. Cash just popped out of nowhere. Suddenly everybody had cash, and they were waiving appraisals and waiving inspections. And so you saw home prices just go straight up. Pretty much, I think we saw year over year like 15%, in some areas more than 15%. But high appreciation in this chunk of time because, again, if there's not a lot of the thing that everybody wants, it just has to cost more. Now, in a balanced market, it's a little nicer, obviously, for everyone. Negotiation is good. Everyone's got a fair shake. And here you just see inflation. Yeah, inflation, there. And in the US, obviously, that's the good dollar. So year over year, inflation in a healthy economy is somewhere around 2% for inflation of currency. And then in real estate, what you actually tend to see is historically 2 to 4% is what we see in a healthy, appreciating market where things are balanced. Home prices go up just because it is a valuable, desirable asset class. But inflation is really the driver of what pushes those prices up because it's just trending along as a safe, appreciating asset. Now, a buyer's market. Great for the buyer, bad for the seller because the seller has no leverage. But what you also see is depreciation. Home values are going down. So aggressive up, gentle up, and then depreciation. And of course, it's going to depend on how far into this, we are for months of inventory. But in general, if a seller needs to sell their house, and there are 12 other sellers in this one neighborhood who are also trying to sell their house, and at that time there's one buyer, you've got a lot of people competing for that one buyer. That one buyer can go look in all those homes, Say, okay, which one do I like? And then still approach that seller and say, I'll take it for 50 grand less. And that seller, depending on their circumstance, might say yes, even if that means they're going to pay to sell or other horrible factors. Now, these are all worst case scenarios in general. But to get to a buyer's market that's that bad, those are the things that start to happen. So a balanced market is really where everybody wants to be, just because that means the economy's good. Everyone's got some income. Everyone's got a home. Well, I do go on. But balanced market, happy. Buyer's market, buyer's getting a good deal. And they might be purchasing a home that's then going to be less than it was worth when they bought it next year, depending on what you're looking at in the grand scheme of the economy. That's really wildly an option, but a scenario where it's just worth discussing. Now, in a depreciating market, depending on what you're looking at with the months of supply, if you're sitting over here, it's not as bad. But if we're really down here where it's, like I said, sellers are just having to give away their house to get it sold and off of their debt so they can go buy the new house in the new city where they're trying to live, things can become pretty significantly impacted cost-wise. But back to the data, where we are currently in the things of the world is pretty balanced. We're at least getting close to. So, we saw 4.2 in January of 2026 here in Roanoke's market, which is a healthy, balanced market. And in an ideal world, we'll get back to 4 and 6 months worth of supply, and then we'll stay there. But if history shows you anything, it never really stays in one place. Economies ebb and flow and things change. There's never just one thing deciding everything for everything else. So every bit of this is, impacted by tons of other factors. Anywho, I hope this was a good, valuable insight. I think I really hit on everything I was hoping to hit on. But if you have any questions, I am happy to talk more ad nauseum with you as to what ifs and hypotheticals and what would we see if this happened and what would we see if that happened and yada, yada, yada. That's the fun stuff. So thank you for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.